Okay, let's unpack this. Today we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating source material about something fundamental,
hmm
mindset. It shapes pretty much everything, doesn't it? How we learn, relationships, even like leadership and business.
Yeah, it really does. This material gives such a deep look at the difference between, well, believing your fundamental qualities are just fixed versus believing they can actually be developed. It gives you this framework for understanding behavior,
Yeah.
especially when facing challenges or success or even criticism.
Right. So our mission for this deep dive is, well, pretty straightforward. We want to pull out the most important insights from this stuff, help you really get the core concepts and see how they actually play out in the real world, sometimes in surprising ways.
hmm
The idea is to see just how much your mindset can impact your potential, your relationships, your ability to really thrive.
And we'll be drawing on specific examples, stories, facts straight from the sources, to make these ideas really concrete, hopefully memorable for you.
All right, let's dive in then. The source material really sets up this core idea, this split between two mindsets, fixed and growth.
That's the foundation. So the fixed mindset. It's basically built on the belief that your basic qualities, think intelligence, talent, personality, they're just fixed traits. You get a certain amount and, well, that's kind of it.
Okay.
So the main driver for someone in this mindset is proving they already have it, proving they're smart, proving they're talented. It's about measuring up.
Which makes a kind of sense, I guess, if you believe it's all static.
Yeah.
So if that's the fixed mindset, proving what you've got, what's the growth mindset about?
It's pretty much the polar opposite. It's this core belief that your abilities, even the most basic ones, they can be cultivated, strengthened. It takes dedication, hard work.
So brains and talent are just the start.
Exactly, just the starting point. From this view, potential is, well, it's unknown. You can't really know what's possible. So the goal isn't proving you're good now. It's about getting better, improving.
Okay, demonstrating fixed traits versus developing potential. Seems simple, but I bet the ripple effects are huge, like how they view effort.
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the really surprising bits in the material. For the fixed mindset, effort is often seen as, well, a bad thing.
A bad thing. How so?
Because think about it. If you're truly naturally gifted, you shouldn't need to work hard, right? Effort almost feels like proof you're not a natural. It casts doubt.
Wow, okay. Seeing effort as a sign of weakness, that's definitely flipping things around.
It is, but it follows logically from that core belief in fixed limits. Now, the growth mindset sees effort completely differently. It's essential. It's not a problem. It's what makes things happen. Effort is what sparks ability, turns talent into real accomplishment. It's just fundamental to learning.
And I imagine this difference really comes out when things get tough. Setbacks, challenges. How do they react then?
Right. So the fixed mindset often avoids challenges because a challenge brings the risk of failure. And failure in this mindset is like a verdict. It means your fixed traits just aren't good enough.
So they might give up easily.
Yeah, they often do when things get hard. And a setback isn't just, oh, that didn't work. It becomes part of who you are. It's an identity thing. I am a failure.
So performance isn't just feedback. It's like a judgment on your very being.
Exactly. Total condemnation. But the growth mindset,
Yeah.
they see challenges differently. They actually kind of embrace them. Challenges are opportunities, to learn, to grow.
Okay.
So when setbacks happen, they don't fold. They persist. Failure isn't a label. It's just information. Okay, that didn't work. What can I try next? It's a chance to learn and bounce back.
What about criticism? Or seeing someone else do well?
Oh, that's really telling too. Fixed mindset often feels really threatened by criticism, even if it's constructive. And someone else's success, that can feel like a personal hit.
Because.
Well, if someone else is succeeding, it might highlight your own perceived limits, right? Make you feel less special. There's often this need to feel superior, to prop up that sense of inherent worth.
That sounds like it could lead to a lot of insecurity.
It often does. Defensiveness, too. But the growth mindset approaches criticism as, well, valuable feedback, a chance to improve. And they find inspiration, lessons, in other people's success. Instead of feeling diminished, they might think, wow, look what they did. What can I learn from that?
One of the most compelling things in the source material is the examples it gives. These people we see as icons, who weren't actually seen as naturals at first.
Right. Like Charles Darwin, Leo Tolstoy apparently described as pretty ordinary kids. Ben Hogan, the golf legend, supposedly uncoordinated. Cindy Sherman, the famous photographer, actually failed her first photography course.
No way.
Yeah. And Geraldine Page, the actress, was told flat out she lacked talent and should give it up.
Wow.
These stories are so powerful because they just smash that fixed mindset idea that greatness is just, born. They show that potential is often hidden. It takes incredible effort, persistence, that belief in development to really bring it out. The surprising thing, what looks like effortless genius is almost always built on years of unseen work and just refusing to believe in fixed limits.
That's a really important way to frame it. Okay, so we've got the core ideas. Let's look at how these mindsets actually play out when people face the world, starting with just difficulty.
Yeah, the material details some fascinating studies. In one, kids with a fixed mindset, their enjoyment just plummeted when easy puzzles got harder. They actually lied about having done them before just to avoid taking the harder ones home to practice.
Seriously?
Duh.
So the fun stopped the second it wasn't easy.
Exactly. And then there was a study tracking junior high kids moving into tougher academics. The fixed mindset kids often took it really personally, saying things like, I'm stupid, or they'd blame the teachers. And chemistry students, fixed mindset ones who did poorly on a test often just stayed down, didn't really recover on the next tests.
Because they figured chemistry just wasn't their thing.
Pretty much, they felt they'd done everything possible, just studied their notes and concluded, well, I'm not a chemistry person. A fixed judgment, right? Now, compare that to the growth mindset kids. The kids doing puzzles, they couldn't be torn away from the hard ones. They found the difficulty engaging. The junior high students, their grades actually went up when the work got harder.
Really?
Yeah. And the chemistry students with a growth mindset, even after bombing the first test, they bounced back. Big time. They saw the bad grade as feedback, tried new ways to study, asked questions, really took charge of their learning.
There's a really striking story in there about a wrestler, Miranda, who got absolutely crushed in a match and was told she was a joke.
Oh, yeah, that one's powerful. Told she had zero natural talent. But she had this growth mindset, partly from some tough family stuff that made her feel like she had to see what she was capable of. So being called a joke, it didn't define her. It lit a fire under her.
You had to find out.
Exactly. Could sheer effort, focus, belief, really intense training, could that make her a real wrestler? And the answer was, well...
An Olympic bronze medal.
Right. And then she didn't stop there, applied to Yale Law School, excited to be a beginner again, see what else she could grow into. It just perfectly shows how that mindset turns insults into fuel.
And Christopher Reeve, another incredibly moving example. After his accident, paralysis, the medical view was basically no hope for recovery.
But he just refused to accept that fixed reality. He adopted this growth mindset about his own body's potential, started this unbelievably demanding exercise program, really pushing the boundaries of what everyone thought was possible. It just highlights how powerful belief and effort can be, even against seemingly impossible odds.
Let's stick with sports for a second. The source talks about the danger of natural talent, which sounds wrong, doesn't it? How can talent be dangerous?
It can be if it locks you into a fixed mindset. The material uses Billy Beane as an example, seen as this baseball prodigy, right? All the natural gifts. But when things got tough, when he wasn't succeeding every single time, he couldn't handle it. Every out felt like a personal failure, like proof he wasn't really that talented after all.
He couldn't deal with imperfection, which is just part of anything hard.
Exactly. John McEnroe is another example given. Hated losing. Famously avoided practice. He felt practice somehow undermined his natural talent. Like, if he was number one, it should just come easily. He didn't see practice as the way to stay number one.
Compare that to others who are all about the work ethic. Chuck Yeager, the test pilot, he apparently said, there's no such thing as a natural-born pilot. Just hard work, discipline, learning.
Right. And Babe Ruth, yeah, larger than life, but apparently wasn't a natural hitter at first. He worked out like crazy in the off-season, loved practice. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, when they banned the dunk in college, his signature shot. He just worked twice as hard developing other shots. Learned that from his coach, John Wooden, a big growth mindset guy.
Jackie Joyner-Kersee, battling asthma and injuries her whole career, just sheer will. And Mia Hamm, arguably the greatest women's soccer player ever, crediting it all to constant practice, just working on her skills endlessly.
It leads to this crucial point. What looks like effortless genius from the outside. It's almost always the result of huge dedication, discipline, and believing effort unlocks potential. The danger isn't the talent itself, it's the fixed mindset it can breed, making people fragile when they hit bumps.
Okay, speaking of effort,
Yeah.
let's shift to something really surprising in the material. The problem with praise, specifically praising intelligence or talent. how that can actually be harmful.
Yeah, this one feels totally backward, right? We tell kids they're smart all the time.
Yeah.
But there was this study by Mueller, mentioned in the source. It showed that praising kids for intelligence, you're so smart, it actually pushed them towards a fixed mindset.
Oh,
Well, later, when they got a choice between an easy task and a harder one they could learn from, they chose the easy one. They didn't want to risk doing the hard one and maybe not looking smart anymore. Their performance crashed as soon as things got difficult.
wow. So telling a kid they're smart makes them afraid of anything that might disprove it.
Yep. Yeah.
That's a big one.
It really is. The source even shares a letter from a mom whose super smart son started avoiding challenges. Not because he couldn't do them, but because his whole self-worth was tied up in being naturally gifted. The risk of failure was just too much. Pure fixed mindset.
So it's the alternative, praising effort.
Exactly. That same study found praising effort, wow, you worked really hard on that, fostered a growth mindset. Those kids, they loved the challenging problems, they saw difficulty as a chance to get better, and their performance actually improved after hitting a tough spot.
That's amazing.
Get this, the source even mentions evidence suggesting praising effort might have raised IQ scores over time, while praising ability actually seemed to lower them.
That completely changes how you think about encouraging kids. And it must affect how we react to failure, too.
Oh, definitely. In the fixed mindset, failure often gets met with judgment. Labels. From parents, teachers. The source gives an example of a dad calling his son dense or irresponsible for not finishing homework, like these are permanent flaws. Yeah. And stories of kids like Sandy and Mark, just crushed by the pressure to be perfect, get into the right schools, seeing any failure as this total personal disaster. It's framed as reflecting a fixed, negative part of them.
Sounds incredibly damaging. So what's the growth mindset approach to failure?
It shifts focus away from judgment towards learning, guidance, discussion. So instead of attacking the kid's character, maybe express frustration about the action. It makes me upset when you don't do a full job and then turn it into like a planning discussion. When do you think you can finish it? Or after a bad test, instead of just punishment, maybe a thoughtful conversation like Alyssa's parents had about letting her go to an event, framing it as, okay, this happened, let's learn from it, plan better next time.
So high standards, but also teaching them how to reach them. There's that great example of Elizabeth's dad after her bad gymnastics meet.
Yeah, he didn't just say, oh, you were great anyway. He was honest but kind, said she hadn't earned a ribbon yet. Explained the other girls had been doing it longer, worked harder. He framed it all around the effort needed, showing her improvement was possible if she put in the work. High expectations, but a clear path forward.
The source highlights schools and teachers who build this kind of culture too. Collins' school in Chicago, focusing on fundamentals, hard work, getting amazing results. Esquith's motto, there are no shortcuts. Delay, expecting excellence, but guiding students step by step.
Right. These are places where the whole environment reinforces valuing the process, the effort over just innate talent. And you see this in leadership too, like the contrast drawn with Bob Knight.
Yes, Bob Knight, the legendary basketball coach,
Yeah.
portrayed as having a fixed mindset, especially about himself, right? His teams felt this immense pressure to be perfect for him, to prove his genius.
Yeah. He used fear, intimidation. Sometimes it worked, championship-wise, but often players just crumbled under the pressure or couldn't wait to get away. The focus was on demonstrating perfection that was already supposed to be there, not really cultivating growth.
And the contrast is Coach John Wooden at UCLA.
Totally. Deep growth mindset about his players. Focused on fundamentals, effort, character building. His incredible success, 10 championships, came from developing potential, not demanding fixed perfection from day one.
Okay, let's shift gears. How does all this mindset stuff impact our personal relationships? That part of the source material really hit home for me.
It's powerful, isn't it? The suggestion is our mindset really colors how we see our partners and deal with issues. With a fixed mindset, when problems pop up, and they always do, right, the tendency is to blame the partner's fundamental traits. Oh, that's just who they are.
Which leads to
Often anger, disgust, contempt. Because if the problem is their core fixed personality, well, there's no hope for change, is there?
right, so you're stuck.
Exactly. So instead of tackling things constructively, someone with a fixed mindset might just avoid the issue, pretend it's not there. Or they might bail on the relationship over things they see as these insurmountable character flaws, even if they seem minor to others. Like Penelope, ending things over ketchup habits or phone etiquette, seeing them as proof of fundamental incompatibility.
That sounds like a really brittle way to approach partnership.
It can be. And the source mentions how fixed mindsets can even create competition within the relationship. Like Susan and Martin, he felt threatened by her success, tried to pull her down. Or Cynthia, who always needed to be just as good or better than her partners at everything.
So it's less a team, more a subtle rivalry.
Precisely. Now, the growth mindset. Totally different approach to relationships. Problems aren't seen as fixed flaws, but maybe as communication issues or things you can work on together.
Okay.
They can see their partner's imperfections, acknowledge them, and still have a strong, loving relationship because the belief is in shared growth, shared problem solving.
There's that quote in the source from Daniel Weil, the relationship expert, about choosing a partner, meaning choosing a set of problems.
Yes, that's such a core growth insight for relationships. No one's problem-free. The health of the relationship comes from saying, okay, these are our challenges. How do we work through them together and build something strong?
And in that kind of relationship, partners actually support each other's growth, like Laura and James helping each other with careers, personal goals.
Exactly. They're on the same team, genuinely invested in each other, becoming more.
The source also contrasts how the mindsets handle heartbreak. Fixed mindset might focus on revenge.
Yeah, that whole living well is the best revenge thing, seeing the other person's pain as some kind of validation. The growth mindset, not really interested in that. The focus is inward and forward. Understand what happened, forgive yourself and them, learn the lessons, and move on stronger. Like the guy who learned so much about communication and what he really needed in a partner after a tough breakup.
And the author's own story about reconnecting with her mother after years of bitterness. Choosing understanding over resentment.
It really shows how choosing to learn, even from deep hurt, can open up paths you didn't think were possible.
It makes you think. We always say you find out who your friends are in tough times. But maybe an even bigger test is who can genuinely celebrate your successes without feeling diminished themselves. That feels like a fixed mindset trap in friendships too.
That's an excellent point. Being able to genuinely cheer for others without it feeling like it takes away from you, that's a real sign of a growth mindset in any relationship.
And this thinking scales up to business and leadership too, right?
Absolutely. The source draws a sharp contrast. Fixed mindset leaders often suffer from CEO disease. Leah Kakaka is mentioned as an example. They lean heavily on past glories, their personal image, focusing on short-term wins that make them look good, maybe not what's best for the company long-term.
The genius with 1,000 helpers idea.
Exactly that. The leader's the brilliant one, everyone else just executes. This often creates cultures where the main goal is just pleasing the boss, ignoring reality, ignoring feedback from below. The Chase Manhattan Bank example before things changed illustrates that. These leaders also tend to shy away from confronting tough truths that might tarnish their perfect image.
So what's the growth mindset leader look like?
They're described often as, well, more humble, self-effacing, always asking questions, always learning. They have the guts to face the brutal facts, admit mistakes, but still keep this unwavering faith that they'll succeed in the end. Darwin Smith at Kimberly-Clark from the Good to Great study, a prime example, always felt like he had to keep qualifying for his job, always learning, focused on the team, the culture.
And Lou Gerstner turning IBM around, tackling that entrenched, fixed mindset culture of we know best.
Yeah, he rooted out that eludism, that internal focus, shifted everything towards the customer, towards teamwork, continuous learning. These leaders are about building something lasting, developing people, ensuring the organization thrives long-term, not just polishing their own legacy.
There are even studies mentioned showing how managers' mindsets impact things.
Right. Studies where putting managers in a growth framework improved their decision-making, their team's performance. They became more ethical, more collaborative compared to fixed mindset approaches that often led to blame games or hiding failures.
And it explains why so much corporate training fails.
It's a big factor. If managers have a fixed mindset about whether skills like coaching or giving feedback can even be learned either by them or their employees, they just won't engage with the training properly. They see it as pointless. The fixed mindset slams the door on development before it starts.
Okay, another shift.
Yeah.
Mindset's impact on dealing with stereotypes and feeling like you belong. This feels really critical.
It is. The material shows how people with a fixed mindset are way more vulnerable to internalizing negative stereotypes. If they hear a stereotype about their group's ability in, say, math, they're more likely to think, maybe that's true about me. It hits their sense of fixed-ability.
So it shrinks their confidence, their sense of belonging in that area.
Exactly. Like the female student whose love for math just withered after a professor's dismissive comment, which she felt was based on stereotypes. It became personal proof of a fixed lack of ability.
But the growth mindset.
They're better armored against it. They're more likely to see a stereotype as just someone else's limited view, an external thing, not a definition of who they are. They can confront it, push back, and maintain their confidence and sense of belonging. Like the other female math student who saw the professor's comment as his problem, reflecting poorly on him. Her group work also helped reinforce that learning is collaborative, buffering the negative message.
It links to that challenge of processing any criticism, right? Especially if you're often targeted. The author's story about the drugstore incident, being yelled at, called bad-mannered, even knowing she was right, the label still stung because it tapped into that fear of fixed judgment.
It really shows how easily those labels can stick if we filter them through a fixed mindset, seeing them as accurate judgments of our permanent character, not just someone's opinion.
How does this play out with something really tough, like bullying?
Fixed mindset victims often internalize it deeply. The bully says I'm a loser, so I must be a loser. It becomes part of their identity. Growth mindset victims, more likely to see it as the bully's problem. They must have issues, something's wrong at home. This helps protect their self-worth and lets them focus on how they can respond, how they can use their mind to navigate it.
The source mentions Brooks's work helping victims shift from revenge fantasies towards using their minds for positive change.
Right. And it also cautions against just labeling perpetrators as monsters. While the acts might be monstrous, the label itself is fixed. It stops us from looking at the potentially growth-stunting environments, the internalized judgments that might contribute to such paths if someone feels trapped by fixed labels.
So much of it comes down to interpretation, doesn't it? Seeing negativity as a fixed judgment versus a challenge or perspective to navigate.
That's the core power of mindset, yes.
Okay, that's a huge range of impacts. It almost feels a bit daunting. But the good news from the source material is mindset itself isn't fixed, right? Change is possible.
That is absolutely the crucial message, the hopeful message. And it starts with just knowing about the mindsets, awareness, understanding how they work. That's step one. Gives you some agency.
So learn about them. Then what?
Then you got to start spotting your own fixed mindset triggers. What situations tend to set off that thinking in you? Is it when you hit a setback, face a big challenge, get criticism, maybe when you see someone else succeed? Just pay attention to when that fixed voice starts talking.
Recognize the situation.
Yeah.
And then recognize the voice itself.
Exactly. The source suggests giving your fixed mindset persona a name even. Like, okay, there's scared Sally wanting to hide, or uh-oh, dumping Dan is trying to blame everyone. Naming it, visualizing it, helps you catch it right when it pops up.
Okay, identify the triggers, know the voice. What's the action step?
You consciously choose a growth response. Intercept that fixed thought. When the voice says, I'm a total failure, you stop it and choose, okay, this is a setback, what can I learn here? When it says, they succeeded, I must suck, you choose, wow, inspiring. What can I learn from how they did that?
It's like actively talking back to that negative voice, retraining your internal dialogue.
It really is. And crucially, the source stresses making a concrete plan. Like beforehand, decide. If X trigger happens, then I will do Y growth-oriented action. It's called an implementation intention. Something like, if I get critical feedback, I won't argue. I'll ask 2 questions about how I can improve. Research shows this pre-planning really helps you follow through, especially when emotions are high.
Sounds like it takes real ongoing effort, though, not just a one-time fix.
Oh, absolutely. It's a process, gradual development, not flipping a switch overnight. You need vigilance, to keep catching that fixed voice when it tries to creep back in. It's about consistently making those growth choices over time.
The source also warns about a false growth mindset. What's that?
That's someone who kind of talks the talk. Oh, yeah, effort is important, learning. But deep down, their motivation is still fixed. They might work hard, but it's not really to learn or get better. It's still fundamentally about proving they're smart or talented.
Oh.
The example of Wes, the dad, is used. He tried the growth language with his son, but he still fundamentally saw his son as just inherently difficult. So the strategies didn't work because his core fixed judgment hadn't actually shifted.
So it's the why behind the actions that matters. Is it truly about growth or still about validating a fixed identity?
Precisely. To build a genuine growth mindset, you can actively practice, like having growth-oriented conversations. The source suggests family dinner questions like, what did you learn today? What mistake taught you something? What did you really try hard at? Shifts the focus away from just results or talent.
And that idea of a mindset watchdog in the family, someone who can gently point out fixed mindset talk.
Yeah, that can be super helpful. Just someone saying, hey, that kind of sounds like the fixed mindset talking, gives you a chance to pause and choose differently. Look, the source is clear. The fixed mindset is tempting. It offers this false promise of worth just for being you, no effort needed, making the growth mindset stick, especially where the fixed one is dug in. It's challenging work, but the payoff, the potential, it's huge.
Wow, that really was an illuminating deep dive. We went from these core beliefs through schools, sports, relationships, boardrooms. It touches everything.
It's fascinating, isn't it, how this seemingly simple idea, are qualities fixed or can they be developed? Just ripples out and shapes our entire response to life. It's not just about talent you're born with, it's fundamentally about your approach to learning, effort, challenges, other people.
And the biggest takeaway, maybe the most hopeful one, is that your mindset isn't set in stone neither. You can actually work on it. You can learn to hear that limiting fixed voice and consciously choose a different path, a growth path. It takes practice, sure, vigilance, but the potential it unlocks for capabilities you didn't even know you had. That's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, by choosing to focus on effort, learning, perseverance, you shift from just trying to prove yourself to the much richer journey of actually becoming.
So as you go about your week, maybe here's something specific to chew on from this deep dive. Just notice your own inner chatter, especially when things get tough or you get criticized or you see someone else really nail something. What's that voice saying? And just what happens if you consciously try to respond with a growth mindset instead?
Or maybe even take it one step further. Pick one specific trigger situation you know you'll likely face this week and make a plan right now. If that happens, what's one single thing you'll do to approach it with growth in mind? One step towards learning or improving or understanding, instead of just judging yourself or them.
We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable things to think about, maybe some practical ideas for your own life. Thanks so much for joining us.